So with firewalls, there's two terms that really are kind of flashy here. One is the stateful packet inspection, and the other one is this thing called network address translation. And you may already be familiar with those, but if you're not, then let's go through them real quick. So typically we configure our firewalls to try to distinguish packets for different types of connections that are associated with them. And because that, only packets that match specific known active connections are allowed to pass through the firewall. So with stateful packet inspection, a lot of times it is dynamic, meaning that we can allow traffic on the fly to come through because we're the proxy and we're sitting there looking at all traffic, making sure that it meets the rules that we've assigned, and making a decision on the fly to allow us to either deny the packet that's coming through or allow the packet that's coming through. Does that make sense right there? So it keeps track of the state of the connection and is able to hold attributes in connections in its memory. So for instance, if you have a TCP connection, it would make the SYN, SYNAC, and ACK, the three-way handshake, a stateful packet inspection or stateful firewall would keep that connection until it is terminated to allow all traffic coming through the network for that connection. Okay? So the flip side of that is the other one that I was going to talk about here is this one that's called network address translation. So sometimes you can set up firewalls to be this thing that's called a NAT. And if you've not heard of this before, it is pretty cool. So internally in the network, we have all these different IP addresses inside the network. But externally, we want people to send traffic to one node for our network, and that's it. So when we receive, let's say, email comes to one place, and then the email server will route it out to where it needs to go. Same thing when it's going out. If we're all sitting here, we all have email, we're all going and using cyberprotects.com email address. What we can do is we send the email, and every one of us would go through a NAT, so it looks like it's coming from one IP address. So it translates the internal schema of the network into one external entity so the internet can communicate with it. That way, the internet doesn't know what our internal schema is, and we're not giving away the keys to our kingdom by divulging that to everybody that's out there probing our networks all the time. So that's what network address translation does. It helps with remapping one IP to another by modifying the network address and the IP packets as they go in transit from a LAN, local area network, out to a WAN, which is a wide area network, or the internet.